Going on? John Beaupre here, and I'm in the middle of the Rio. It's about 9 in the morning, and although the Rio isn't the uh, favorite place of mine to be at 9 in the morning, I am here for good reason. I just registered for the 1500 No Limit 6 Max, which I won last year, and I want to talk about for a moment about the strategy behind registering for tournaments early and why it's a good idea. So, the first thing I should say is if you care about EV, if you care about improving your chances of going deep in a poker tournament, you should register early. It doesn't matter as much online, of course. Well, maybe it does, I guess. But in live tournaments, I always try to register at least a few hours early before the tournament because it inevitably means that you're going to get a better table draw. Weaker players, recreational players, amateurs, they like to register early for tournaments, typically, and a lot of the guys that late reg, especially at the series here where the start time is at noon, a lot of them are pros who have been up all night playing or partying or don't want to get here on time to play. So don't be surprised if you late reg the tourney and you find yourself with a bunch of other pros. Second thing I want to talk about is cash games. I've been grinding a lot of cash games since I've been here. In the beginning, I was doing very well. Went on a little bit of a downswing, had a winning session last night, and that's sort of how it is, of course, up and down. Especially I'm playing PLO cash, mostly 5, 10 and a quarter. But I've played at a couple of different places. I've played at the Aria and I've played at the Rio. And the reason I keep going back and forth, of course, has to do with the player pool. But even more importantly, it has to do with the button straddle. I've talked about this in blogs. A lot of players talk about how great the button straddle is for the game. It's actually terrible for the game. I would love to hear some discussion on this, but I am a firm believer that the button straddle is awful for cash games. A lot of players think that it brings action because, it depends on what you consider action. I think that it shuts down and makes pre-flop play more passive. And if you're a good player, it takes away a lot of the profit you can make from 3-betting from the blinds facing late position or even middle position opens. So there's a lot of negatives to it. I think the best way to increase action is to keep the under the gun straddle in, make it mandatory, or make it a 3-blind game. Those always seem to be the best games. So I look for those. If the Rio's not running that and they're having button straddling games, I go to the Aria and play. And I think a lot of players are just too lazy to sort of pick and choose their battles and find EV that way. Third thing I want to talk about is my bust out hand from last night and overall tournament strategy in these 1500 and below events. Now, I think that there's a big difference between a 1500 and a 1K. In the 1500, you get 4,500 chips, and in the 1K, you get 3K chips. That doesn't sound like very much, but it's 50% more, and it does make a big difference. Now, a lot of players will say, hey, you've got only 3,000 or 4,500 chips. You have to go off and build chips early. That's partly true, but I've found that the players in these fields are very weak, and as long as you stay patient, you're going to be able to get your chips in good, value bet, post flop in some good spots. So be patient. Don't get discouraged if through the first couple of levels, you're not building a stack. Every tournament I've ever played, I actually started out pretty short. So, well, not started out short, but at one time in the tournament, I was very short. So my strategy, like I said, is just to stay pretty tight. Tight players seem to do really well in these tournaments. And then, when the late game comes on and, they turn it on down the stretch. So that would be my best advice for tournament players. Millionaire Maker was an unbelievable field. 8,000 entrants. I couldn't even find somewhere to park in the parking lot. I had to tip the valet to let me park in one of the secret spots. So they keep saying that poker's dead, but every time I come out here, it seems like the World Series is just going off over and over and over again. All right, well, I am going to go play this 1500 No Limit 6 Max. Let's get a view of the Rio real quick. Look at this big, beautiful place behind me. Oh my God, it's just like DGen heaven, especially at this time of hour. Like, people who've been playing open face all night, and it's about to be filled with poker players. And I'm hoping to take it down. Thanks for checking it out, guys. BraceleThunter.com. Listen to the podcast that we've got releasing this week. It's going to be the best one of all time. Check it out. See ya.